This is The Weekly Set, an official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com.
I wish I was the monster you think I am.
You have come here to beseech me?
Can't ask for your soul.
Madness can be a medicine for the modern world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of The Total Screen. I'm your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
This is episode 265. We're recording on July 27th, and we are going to be discussing The Umbrella Academy Season 1. You might wonder, hey, haven't they already covered Umbrella Academy Season 1? Well, we thought the same thing, but it turns out we never did. And with Season 2 coming up, we said we should probably just cover Season 1 first. So, yeah, we actually covered the pilot episode of Umbrella Academy in one of our Advocates of Great Television episodes, and I think we've kind of offhand made references to it, like while talking about other things.
Yeah, they definitely have.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about it, just kind of like before and after podcast, or just at random points when we've chatted with each other, but we never did it in an episode where we actually covered a season of the show. So we were kind of as thrown as maybe you are by wondering why we hadn't done it. We were kind of at the same position, surprised we hadn't actually covered it. And we said, well, if we're going to cover Season 2, it makes sense to kind of just do Season 1 first. So we're going to be doing Season 2. Season 2 comes out this Friday. We're not going to do it the following Monday when we'd record the podcast. We'd have to rush it in a bunch of episodes within like 3 days. So we're not going to do that. We're going to cover it the week after. But this week we're going to be doing Season 1. Next week we're going to be doing a little kind of thought exercise thing. Then the week after that we're doing Season 2. But yeah, you know, but Season 2 does come out this Friday if you do watch the Umbrella Academy. So that's something to look forward to. But yeah, we're going to jump in on Season 1 of the series that I like to think of as Wes Anderson's The X-Men.
Wes Anderson's The X-Men are like, it's also the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, definitely. I could see that too, yeah. It's definitely got that kind of family thing of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, actually, it's like the same theme. It's like the theme of the Fantastic Four is family. The main overriding theme of the Umbrella Academy is also family. This series just happens to deal with a dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
Rather than a happy family.
Yeah. An adoptive family that is just very dysfunctional and had a upbringing that leaves a lot to be desired. And, yeah, I mean, let's start out. We should say who this came from and kind of that kind of background detail stuff. So you're much more into comic books than I am. So I'm sure, I don't know if you have any experience having read the Umbrella Academy or anything.
I haven't read the whole thing, but
I'm sure you were aware of it though for a while.
Oh, yeah, I was aware of it because when it came out, it was kind of a big deal. And I remember I bought I think at least the first 3 issues of the original Umbrella Academy. I read them. And it was the Apocalypse Suite, which was the first storyline. And this hews pretty closely to that because it basically introduces the characters, and the whole storyline centers around Vanya, who is the one sibling in this motley group who does not appear to have any superpowers. Everybody's got a special ability. And
you have to say appear because you can't see air quotes in on a podcast.
Yeah, everybody's got a special ability, but Vanya is normal, and she's kind of frustrated by the fact that she is normal. And
she's left out and kind of neglected within the family.
Yeah, she's left out and kind of neglected by everybody else. And we gotta say, this actually takes place in the present. This actually takes place at a reunion because they're reunited by the death of their adopted father, the mysterious, eccentric billionaire Reginald Hargreaves, whose sudden death brings all of these all of his wayward adopted children together to kind of solve his murder. And this reunion brings a lot of these unresolved tensions boiling to the surface, especially with regards to Vanya and how she's an outsider within her own family.
We should run down just kind of quickly who these 7 are, because there's 7 kids, and kind of why they were adopted and stuff. So
yes,
and the series starts off with like a Russian in a swimming pool.
Well, yeah, it starts off with the Russian in a swimming pool. We find out in the beginning, that all of these children were born on the same day, all to virgin mothers. You know,
did they clarify virgin? All we know is they weren't pregnant at the beginning of the day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I don't know if they actually did say virgin or not, but yeah, they were not pregnant at the beginning of the day, but then they did give birth that day.
Yeah. And there were a bunch of them. There were more than just the 7.
Oh yeah, there's, I'm looking at the wiki right now. It says 43 women in 1989 was supposedly when these 6 were born, but there were supposedly 43 of them. I don't think it's explained what happened to the rest of them, but it's explained that Reginald Hargreaves traveled around the globe to try and assemble as many of these children as he could. I believe he only managed to gather 6.
Well, 7 counting
Vanya. Oh yeah, 7 counting Vanya, yeah.
And so he got them all, and he's kind of like this eccentric billionaire, this really smart guy. He's on this mission to save the world and stuff, but he's cold. He's cold and distant. He's very logical. He's almost Vulcan-esque.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like all these 7 have names. They have like comic book-esque nicknames, but that's not what he gave them. He gave them numbers.
Yeah. He designated each one of them a number. Like he's really detached from them. Like he doesn't treat them like a father treats their children. He just like his only interactions with them is to give them an order or to like have them do training, right?
Yeah.
And basically when they're still children, he has them go out into the world as a superhero team and like fight crime. Yeah. You know, that's what he
putting
has
themselves
them
in the path of bullets and
yeah.
when they're like 10.
Yeah, when they're like 10. And they actually become like a famous like crime fighting team while they're still children, which is kind of fucked up.
We should go through kind of all these 7 and kind of what their various names and titles and what they can do and kind of their position in it. So number 1 is Luther, who's also known as Space Boy. Luther takes on kind of the role story-wise as like he's like the dutiful son.
Yeah.
He's trying to be loyal to his dad. And
he is the one that's super loyal to his dad when like all of his siblings are basically like, fuck that guy, you know?
Yeah.
And he's just like, no, he was our dad, you know?
My dad did this. It has to have a meaning. There has to be a reason behind it. You know, like everything's about that. His power is that he's super strong. Kind of the most basic of superpowers, I guess. Super strength. So that's Luther. Number 2 is Diego Hargreaves. He's called the Kraken, and story-wise, before you get into power, he's like the exact opposite of Luther. He's like the most fuck off and die dad of the whole group.
Yeah, he is. He's like the rebel, right? He's
the Raphael.
He's a Raphael. I would say if there's a black sheep, he would probably be it.
Luther's like Dean Winchester, and Diego is like Raphael from the Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
His ability is that he has like ultra precision, basically. Like he can like throwing knives like, you know, like around the corner practically. He can, have we seen him like ricochet stuff? It's like, it's almost at that level where he'd be able to do that.
He's basically Bullseye.
Yeah. Basically Bullseye from Daredevil. I don't think we've seen him ricochet stuff, but he probably
He's actually
could.
Like, character-wise, he's actually kind of reminds me like, if they cross like Bullseye with Batman, because he operates a lot like Batman does too.
He operates like a Dark Avenger of the Night. It's like,
yeah.
You know, going around doing his thing. Next up we have, number 3, Allison Hargreaves, the rumor. So she, in the pace of the storyline, is like the pretty eldest daughter The eldest daughter who gets everything.
She's
the beauty
actually
pageant
she's
queen.
actually like a Hollywood star. She's like a movie star at this point.
Yeah.
You know, like, so she's like famous and everything.
She's the one people dote on, especially Luther.
Yeah.
Luther is totally head over heels in love with Allison.
Luther has a very close relationship with Allison.
Yeah, he's head over heels for her. Most important person in his life. Even as loyal as he is to his dad, like, Allison supersedes that, you know, even.
Right.
He's totally in love with her. She's the only one of this entire group that has a child of her own. She didn't stick around with Luther. She went and she got married and had like a kid, and their marriage fell apart, and now her kid lives separately as a result of her using her power on her kid. And her power is that she can control people by speaking to them, by saying, I heard a rumor that, and then giving them a command, basically. Like, I heard a rumor that you shot your friends. And then the person will pull out their gun and shoot their friends, you know? So she has like that, a limited kind of mind control through her voice. And she used this power on her daughter when her daughter was acting up when she was young, and told to get her daughter to like go to sleep, basically. And then after that, it became easier. It became less of a taboo to use that. And so she started using it on her daughter whenever her daughter got out of control. She needed like a moment of quiet, you know, or things like that parents have to deal with. And then as a result of being caught doing that and feeling shame for that and getting a separation from her husband from that, she doesn't have custody of her kid anymore. And that's kind of her role in the story, in that, as like this Hollywood actress who doesn't have her kid. Next up, we have number 4, Klaus Hargreaves, known as the Seance.
He can talk to the dead.
That's his power, yeah.
That's his power. But he's pretty fucked up. His power, like, in the way that he was, like, trained by his father, kind of, like, really messed him up to the point where, like, he's a drug addict now.
Yeah. He's like if Haley Joel Osment from The Sixth Sense, never had his experience with Bruce Willis, and instead just grew up in fear of all the dead people around him.
Right.
About what you would imagine he'd end up like.
Yeah. Because we find out, like, he's a drug addict, but he uses drugs to kind of, like, numb himself from having to deal with the spirits around him, because it's not something he could turn on or off. It's like the dead are constantly talking to him.
Yeah. And then it's like torture. So he's just a total drug addict. He's the wild card of the family because of that.
Yeah. He's the wild card. He does things, you know, like he does things like to fuel his habit that are detrimental to the family, you know, and he tries to not be involved in whatever anybody is doing. Yeah,
we talked about Vanya being like kind of disregarded and treated poorly by her family because she didn't have powers, in air quotes there. So in the way that she's treated really badly, Klaus is treated badly in a different way, where there's like no empathy for his situation from his family.
Right.
And
yeah.
like they just don't even make an effort to understand like what his living hell must be like.
No, they just kind of like, everybody's just kind of like, you know, they treat him like a loser.
And so he just, in return, just kind of everything's like a joke to him. He just doesn't care. Like, he doesn't care about the approval of his family.
Right.
He's just past that point. Klaus, by the way, is played by, you know, an actor who is in Misfits, if you've ever seen that show. Hilarious actor, who nails it. So yeah, if you like Klaus, check out Misfits on, Hulu, I believe. But, yeah, so that's Klaus, number 4. Number 5 is the boy. He doesn't have a name, at least that we know of. He is at no point addressed by any name. He's either called the boy or he's called number 5, or just 5.
And he has the power to, I guess to manipulate time.
He's Hero from Heroes.
Yeah.
He can jump in space, but he can also time travel.
Yeah, he can jump in space, but he can also time travel. And one of the things, like, he does, and as far as our story is concerned, like, where we enter, he's been missing for years. Like, he disappeared.
Yeah, as a child, yeah.
As a child, and he's been gone this whole time, and as the story opens, he suddenly reappears, still as a child, but he explains that he is actually like 50-something years old, and that he just jumped, like when he time traveled, he jumped into the body of his past self.
Yeah, he screwed up his calculations or something, and because of that, he ended up in his younger self, you know?
Yeah, so he's like perpetually a young boy now.
the reason I separated that point is that they do make a point that it was a mistake he made, that he could theoretically time travel at his correct age all over the place. It's just that he has to make the right calculations. Otherwise he'll screw it up and ended up in a younger body. So that's number 5. He's kind of a key figure in the story. He's kind of like driving the action of this season.
Yeah, as we find out, like the things that are going on in the season, he seems to be the only one interested in solving the bigger mystery.
Yeah, but I mean, part of that's his own fault, that he's not giving all the information to his family. He'll just kind of give like a piece of the information and then be exasperated and be like, oh, whatever, I'm out. And just like leaves. yeah,
because like he has high disdain for his family. He doesn't think he thinks they're incompetent.
Yeah, so he doesn't really trust them to do the right thing or anything. So he just he'll give somebody some information and then he'll start to give it, and then they push back even the slightest bit. Like they just ask him to repeat something or something, and he just gets fed up and like takes off.
Yeah.
So he may be the only one actively trying to stop the end of the world through the series, but it's also because nobody else really understands that's what's happening.
Right.
Then we have number 6, Ben Hargreaves, also known as the Horror. Ben's dead. So number 5 disappeared. Ben died.
And Ben died. We don't know how. We know like he died during a mission, but they went on.
They say it was horrible. It's all they've kind of really said about it.
They say it was horrible. And we did see like his power at one point in a flashback. He had the power, I don't know how to explain it. Like
it's pretty Lovecraftian.
It's pretty like these tentacles came out of him or something, and he was like just thrashing these bank robbers around, and it was pretty terrible. And they show like the aftermath. They show him. He's pretty shooken up by the entire experience. Right?
It's funny because his code name is the Horror, but his brother Diego is code name is the Kraken. But like Ben is like literally a Kraken when he's using his powers.
But that's why like for like a while I was like getting them confused, because I was thinking like Ben was the Kraken, because like in my head I was just thinking the tentacles. That makes sense.
That's his power.
That's his power. But yeah, you're right. So I was getting kind of confused about that. But it's interesting too, because Ben is dead, but we do see him because of Klaus's power. Klaus can still talk to Ben, and Ben appears before Klaus many times. Klaus, whatever.
It's Klaus. Weird German name.
Santa Claus. They don't say Santa Claus.
No, that's spelled different.
Klaus, like, Ben appears before Klaus many times during the series. And I think, I remember saying this to you before. When we were talking about this show, that's why I have memories of us doing this, because I know we've talked about this. But I remember saying it to you before, that I think the reason Ben appears before Klaus and why they have that relationship is because they can relate to each other, because their powers are so terrible, and they messed with them so much. Like nobody else struggles with their powers, except for these two. We've never seen like...
And Allison later on, just because she fucked up her own life with it.
Yeah, Allison, but definitely not as kid. But we never see like Luth, like Diego, like being all shooken up about his power or anything. But we definitely see like Klaus and Ben as a child just being like mortified by what happened. And I think they share that connection. And I think that's why Ben frequently appears to Klaus.
Yeah. And I think, part of it's that, but it's also, I think, Klaus, we say he doesn't really have control of his power. I think that he has limited control over his power. And I think part of that is that he relates to Ben and wants Ben to be around him,
That's
as much
true,
as he'll complain about Ben, I think he enjoys having Ben's company.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's Ben, number 6. And then last is number 7. We talked about before already. Vanya, known as the White Violin in the comics. I don't think she's ever called that at any point. They make some visual references to it later, but
they make some visual she's not called this in the show as far as I know directly, but in the comics she's known as the White Violin. Yeah, this is the person that the entire season revolves around. Because we find out that she's introduced as somebody with no powers and an outsider to to the family, and that kind of misleads you into believing that, she's not going to have a big role. But we do find out through the course of the events of the season.
But if you thought she wasn't going to have a big role, you should be ashamed of yourself, because she's played by Ellen Page.
Yeah.
So obviously, she's going to be an important part of the series.
Right. And we do find out through the course of the season that she actually does have powers, and not only does she have powers, but she is the most powerful of them all. She has like a power that was apparently so great that it terrified their father and made him just decide to not train her and not to have her use her powers at all.
To go even a step beyond that, to have her use his other daughter, Allison, the rumor, to use her power to convince Vanya that she's ordinary, so that she never questions.
Yeah, so she
never stumbles upon her own power.
Right. So this is, yeah.
And she's also been heavily medicated. They said it was for like anxiety or whatever other reasons. But they're using the medication to dampen her power.
Yeah, to dampen her power.
So Vanya, the tragedy of Vanya's character, she grew up her whole life basically being neglected, not just by her father, like they all were, but by everyone in her family. Being treated like she doesn't even matter. Like she's not even really one of them.
Yeah. She didn't go on the missions with everybody else. Mm-hmm. She didn't have that camaraderie like the other kids had with each other.
They barely talked to her or anything. Like it's pretty bad. And then not only that, but she ended up as an adult trying to make something of her own life. She ends up as an insider to everything that happened with the family. She writes kind of a tell-all book about her experiences in the family, which instantly makes her like a pariah to her whole family.
Yeah, because she publishes this book and now everybody's like pissed off at her for like airing their dirty laundry in public,
Yeah.
And so she's even more of a pariah now.
Yeah. And so she's treated kind of like crap. So when they all come back together, everybody's kind of just like, what are you even doing here? You don't belong here and stuff, and then some people are kind of fighting for her when it's convenient to them. Allison is kind of on Vanya's side when it's convenient for her to be.
Right.
Klaus is kind of indifferent. He doesn't care that she wrote a tell-all book, like it doesn't bother him, but he's indifferent to everybody. So that's not anything special.
Right. He doesn't treat her special either. So
the boy doesn't care, but he has disdain for all of his family.
Right.
So that's not anything different. Ben obviously can't even communicate to her because he's, the only person he can communicate to is Klaus. And then, Luther and Diego both treat her pretty horribly. And we should mention there's other people kind of in this makeshift family. There's these seven. Yeah. There's Sir Reginald Hargreaves, who's their father figure. There's also a monkey.
Deceased.
Yes, there's also a monkey.
Yeah, there's a monkey. There is Pogo, who is the butler and basically one of the primary caretakers. So I get the feeling Pogo did a lot of the emotional rearing. That
was between Pogo and Grace, who is a robot.
Yeah, who is an android.
Was designed to kind of be the mother figure for these kids. And so these kids have these names, like we mentioned, Luther, Diego, Allison, Klaus, Ben, Vanya, all except number 5. But those names, they weren't given those like at birth by their father or anything. These were given to them by Grace.
Yes.
In particular, Diego has is a real mama's boy.
Yeah, Diego. Again, that's like another opposite of Luther, right? Whereas Luther is a total father's boy, Diego is a mother's boy, a mama's boy.
Yeah, we learned that Diego had like a big stuttering problem and had a lot of issues with confidence related to that, and that Grace was always very patient with him. I mean, she's just an android, so it's not like...
so it's not like she couldn't not be patient. But
that meant a lot to Diego.
Yeah, she helped him work through those issues, and Diego, that stuck with him.
Yeah, so he cares, like, out of everybody in his family, the only one he really cares about is Grace.
Yes.
And none of them care as much about Grace as he does. So that's kind of that going on, that position. So that's this family, this dysfunctional family, and all the shit they're going through. Other characters we have are centered around number 5, because we know that number 5 is in this mission to save the world from ending. That he's, as we mentioned, isn't really properly communicating. But he's doing that going against his former employers. He worked for like this agency that basically made sure that history happened as it should, that any outliers that would influence it would be taken out. He was kind of like the time travel version of like the Samaritan from Westworld season 3. Not Samaritan, what was it? I can't remember what it was called, but the artificial intelligence from Westworld season 3, like killing all the people that divert the path that that the world's supposed to be on.
Yeah.
So in the same way, they're like a time traveling hitman agency that kills people that are going to disrupt time, like the way that time's supposed to move.
Right. And this is a problem number 5 creates through his time travel.
So the number 5, we find out that where he disappeared to. When he disappeared, he had just gotten into a fight with his dad because he wanted to start playing around with time travel, and his father said he wasn't ready. He kind of stormed out of the building and started doing a bunch of like little short time travel jumps. So it was a pretty cool scene because like you'd see him jump and then it would be like winter all of a sudden, and he'd jump again and it would be like everybody would be wearing like bell bottoms or something, and he'd jump again, and so you'd get this idea of like he's making these small jumps in time. And then he ended up making a jump, and all of a sudden he's in just a straight up post-apocalyptic future, like everything's destroyed and nobody's
his family is dead. He sees
everyone's dead. Yeah.
His family dead. Like everybody's dead. He's like the only living person.
Yeah.
You know,
it's just a waste. There's nothing there. And he can't make jumps anymore. So he's like stuck in this future, and you see that he basically lived an entire life by himself.
Yeah.
Where he had just nobody. He ended up actually like growing perversely attached to a mannequin.
Yeah.
That he calls Dolores. That is his his mannequin that he talks to. It's kind of like his version of Wilson from Castaway.
Yeah.
He needs somebody to talk to keep his sanity. And so he talks to this mannequin, and he's just basically scavenging. Like there's nobody else. When we say nobody else, we're not talking like The Walking Dead where there's small pockets. We mean like nobody. Nobody is around.
No, yeah, there's nobody. It's literally just him.
Yeah, and he's traveling completely by himself until he's in his like late 50s, and all of a sudden he gets visited by this woman called the Handler, who represents this agency that we had just mentioned does these hits. And she offers him a job to become involved in this, with the promise that after he's served, I think it's like 5 years or something, that after that point, he can go to any time period he wants to and have like a big pension and basically live out of retirement in some other time period. And so he takes this job, and he becomes kind of a legend amongst his agency. Because, I mean, these people, they can time travel through devices and stuff, but he has supernatural ability, you know? And he was trained to, like, fight crime, so he's, like, quick and efficient and ruthless, you know?
Right.
Since he was, like, a child. So, like, he becomes really good at it, and he gets involved in all these incidents in the past. And at a certain point, he knows that this world's going to end and he can't abandon his family, and he has to like escape, and he finally calculates his path back and makes a jump back in time. And that's when he kind of ends up back in his childhood body and everything that we saw in the first episode with him appearing before his family. And now his plan is to stop the apocalypse, which of course isn't going over well with his former employers, who send after their next 2 top assassins, Cha-Cha and Hazel, after him.
Yes. Cha-Cha and Hazel are such good characters. Such a good team. Like,
I love Hazel. It's the same guy who played Ed Kemper in Mindhunter.
Yes. It's the same guy. And it's funny because, like, they're supposed to be, like, the bad guys, but, like, you end up, like, growing attached to them. Like, especially, like, Hazel comes off as, like, very sympathetic.
Yeah, Cha-Cha's kind of an asshole, but she's a likable asshole. It's Mary J. Blige, you know? Yeah.
She's a lovable asshole. And Hazel is, like, ends up, like, coming across, like he ends up being, like, actually, like, a real softie.
Yeah, he kind of starts to grow tired. He's through early early in the series, he's like bitching about basically not getting hazard pay and not like kind of like union type stuff, you know?
Yeah, I kind of like it that like they're like time assassins, but they're also like normal people like getting frustrated with their job, you know,
Yeah.
like.
And
That's
Hazel
really
more
fun.
so than Cha-Cha. And that's kind of the inroads. Hazel's frustration with his work is his inroads into us kind of seeing that, like you said, he's like a softie, you know?
Right.
That he actually kind of just doesn't really like his work and wants out. So yeah, so you have Cha-Cha and Hazel are hunting number 5. Number 5 is trying to kind of outwit them and stay away from them while also trying to investigate what causes this catastrophic event.
We should say like there is a thing like where like Diego has like a love interest who's like a female detective, you know, who's like he's always like trying to like hit her up for information and stuff.
So this was in the comic book is apparently an older male detective, and there's no love interest or anything at all.
Oh yeah, they changed this to a love interest.
Yeah.
And I guess because we needed that. But they changed us to a love interest. But the big thing is like we established this relationship with Diego and this detective, and then I believe like Cha-Cha ends up killing her, and this kind of like sets off Diego to like where like he makes it his mission to get Cha-Cha and Hazel.
Yeah, to get revenge on the two of them.
Yeah.
Hazel in the meantime has his own love interest as well. He ends up kind of developing this weird May-December romance with this woman who works at a donut shop.
Yeah, a donut shop that he was at like once because they tracked number 5 to the donut shop, and then he just kept going back there, and he starts having a romance with the woman who was working at the donut shop.
Yeah, he's like talking to her about just real kind of simple things, and he ends up getting really attracted to her and just ends up being like, this is kind of like separating him from his partner, and his partner is not really picking up on this. Right. In fact, just the opposite. At one point, when he tries to make a comment to his partner, Cha-Cha, about like him not wanting to do this anymore, and she interprets it as him being interested in her. Like, oh, the two of us can have a life together away from all of this. When he's talking about this other love interest he has. And that creates like a rift between those two.
Yes.
It kind of lasts through the rest of the series.
The rift lasts through the rest of the series. It gets exacerbated when number 5 like rejoins that organization, you know, for his own purposes, of course, for his own agenda, to further his own agenda, and he kind of uses his position from the inside to pit Hazel and Cha-Cha against each other.
Yeah, they have these like time traveling pneumatic tubes.
Yes.
Where they send their assassins like updates on their missions and things they need to do. And so he had messages sent to each of them individually telling them to kill the other.
Yes. And that leads to like this whole crazy thing where like they try to kill each other, and then like Hazel is trying to run off with his love interest, and Cha-Cha is hunting him down. She actually kidnaps Hazel's love interest and threatens to kill her just to get to Cha-Cha threatens to kill her in order to get to Hazel. And it leads to like this crazy thing where like the poor woman is like strung up in like this death trap.
Yeah,
you know?
She's like in a chair above like a boiling hot tub with like, I think there's like it's her in a chair and like a toaster or something. And
yeah.
So like if she falls in it, she'll be electrocuted.
And Cha-Cha is like about to kill her, you know, and it's about to look like things are going to go bad. Then the handler suddenly appears and like solves the whole thing.
Yeah. But Hazel's smart enough to realize that the handler's full of shit. Because the handler basically says like, oh, you know, you take care of this mission and we'll give you both pardons. And Hazel, you and your girlfriend can take off to wherever you want and live out your life. And Cha-Cha will give you another partner and forgive all of this stuff that happened. And there's a point where Hazel and Cha-Cha are talking in the car, and Cha-Cha's like, isn't this great? We all get what we want or something. And Hazel's like, you think she's not going to come through? She didn't give us a briefcase. What does that tell you? You know, she's planning on us dying in this apocalypse. And at this point, Hazel's completely committed to helping to stop the apocalypse so that he can live out his life with Agnes, his love interest. even before that whole event, he had already committed to that. He gave
he
both
was
his
already-
and Cha-Cha's guns to number 5 and told number 5, like, here, because number 5 was talking about Diego being basically held up on the crime of murdering his love interest.
Yes.
Because he died and his fingerprints were around the scene because he found her dead. And Hazel's like, well, here's our guns. You can use them to clear them.
Right.
And kind of makes peace with the boy, number 5. And then that's when he finds out his girlfriend was abducted and all that other stuff happens. But so even before that point, Hazel had already kind of committed to helping stop the end of the world rather than perpetuating.
Meanwhile, while number 5 is investigating the end of the world and running away from Hazel and Cha-Cha and all that is happening, we're seeing Vanya makes a new friend, she meets this guy named Leonard.
Yeah. This sounds like, I haven't read the original comic, but this sounds like a big improvement over the way they did it in the comic.
Right.
In the comic, it was this role was taken up by the conductor of the orchestra that Vanya was in.
Right.
And there was no romantic connection. There was no thing. It was just, he was evil and villainous and manipulating her in his position as a conductor. Whereas in this one, this is this boyfriend that Vanya makes. He ends up going to her apartment to learn from her because she plays violin, and she's teaching him how to play. And she thinks she's kind of like just meeting this guy, and he starts getting more and more embedded in her life, and he gets involved. He's very encouraging and helpful towards her. And you start realizing something's kind of up.
Yeah, we realize something's off with this guy, and we find out that that this didn't happen by chance, that he planned this whole thing out, that he knew who Vanya truly was, and his entire plan the whole time was to draw out her true power. And I'm thinking like, so he could exploit it for his own ends, but that doesn't end up really happening.
Yeah, his backstory is that he was born on the same day as all of these Hargreave children were.
Oh, that's right. Yes, he was.
He wasn't like a miracle pregnancy. He was just happened to be born on that day.
Yeah, and he thinks he's special because of it.
And he has a tragic backstory in which his mom died giving birth to him. And his dad, it's basically like a Ben Linus situation. His dad blames him and has become an alcoholic and is violent and crude towards his son and very nasty. And this causes him to kind of grow up a bit warped. And this is made even worse one point in which he's, completely obsessed with the Umbrella Academy. And he dresses up. He makes like a makeshift costume like they wear when they do the crime fighting, and goes to some press event they're doing and tries to kind of join them, and is basically begging Reginald Hargreaves to take him in as well, and saying he's special too. He just knows it, that he's special. And Reginald basically humiliates him, not intentionally, but just because he's cold and doesn't care, and that's his character.
Right.
And it's just you're not special, you'll never be special. And the whole audience there is laughing at him. And at this point, he kind of goes crazy. He comes home and he ends up killing his dad as a child, and is locked up in juvie for it, is released as an adult. And that's how he kind of is involved in this now. He's basically lived his whole life in prison after that situation, after being humiliated. And he ends up kind of stalking the Hargreaves family, and happens to luck out on an occasion. We say luck, but when you take into account the engineering of the time travelers, there's got to be some other things playing a part in this, But basically, he ends up finding a book that is Reginald's journal. And this book was stolen by Klaus because the book was in a gold-plated box or something. And Klaus takes it, throws out the book in a dumpster behind their building, and he just wants to sell the box to get drugs. And Leonard, who's stalking them, ends up finding this book. And has all the information about all these kids and their powers. And it also has the fact that Vanya has powers and why he was terrified of him and what helped bring those powers out. And so you find out that he gets in this relationship with Vanya in a planned way, and he's manipulating her to create division between her and her family, but also to bring out her powers. He dumps out her medications that are suppressing her abilities. He starts amping up the frustration for things with her. He's making her more and more dependent on him by kind of being there in all of these moments that he's like manufacturing for her. Like, for instance, she's never been able to be first chair in the orchestra, and this one woman is always first chair, so he murders this woman. He abducts her, kills her, and now they need a new first chair violinist, and he like encourages her to do it and get involved in it so that he can share that moment with her, so that he becomes her family more than her family is.
And basically what ends up happening with that is, Vanya ends up going missing. The rumor, basically realizes this first, that something's wrong, and that, she's trying to find Vanya, and Vanya's not at her apartment. So she goes looking for Vanya, and she finds the cabin where Vanya and Leonard are at, and she confronts Vanya. At this point, Vanya's been awakened, Yeah. So, but Allison doesn't realize this. She, Allison and Vanya get into an argument at this point, and Vanya basically Allison tries to use her power on Vanya, and before she can even speak, Vanya slices her throat. Yeah. And prevents her from talking. It's not a death blow. It doesn't kill Allison. But
Vanya thinks it did. Vanya thinks she just killed her sister.
Yeah, Vanya thinks she just killed her sister because, Luther and I believe Diego end up finding Allison at the cabin after Vanya and Leonard take off.
It's Luther, Diego, and Klaus, I think.
Okay, I wasn't sure if Klaus was there. Like I said, it's been a while since I watched it, so all the details are not clear, but the broad strokes are. But it's so Luther and Diego and Klaus arrive at the cabin and they find Allison bleeding out, and Vanya and Leonard are gone. And thankfully they're able to save Allison. She's not dead. But Vanya flees with this sense of guilt that she just killed her sister, So now she's not only pissed off and angry, she's scared and confused, So it's this whole whirlwind of emotions that eventually Vanya lashes out at Leonard and takes him out.
When she finds the book and realizes he's been manipulating her this whole time. Yes. And then he reacts in a, we need to take out your family and it will be special and we'll be, there. And she's like, I killed my sister. And he's like, who cares? And she snaps and ends up killing him because she knows she's been manipulated by him. Meanwhile, her family still doesn't know she has powers. The only one who knows she has powers is Allison, and she's not in any fit state to tell them. She can't talk, by the way, because of the injury to her throat. But she can't even communicate in another way to tell them because she literally just survived something that could have killed her, And so she's unconscious. So they don't really know what's going on. They end up telling, Allison ends up being able to communicate to Luther what's going on with it. Allison returns home. Luther tells her, she's not dead. She's kind of breaking down and crying, and he kind of opens up his arms for her. But then he starts squeezing her to knock her out, and basically ends up throwing her in a cage, which is there's a cage underneath the Umbrella Academy, a soundproof room or whatever, a vault that Hargreaves had put Vanya in when she started developing powers when she was young, because he thought she was dangerous and he was scared of her. So he had this soundproof vault room that he had her locked up in for days and stuff before he finally ended up figuring out that he could use Allison to make her forget that she's special, basically. But Vanya now is as you said, awakened. Her memories have kind of come back. She remembers how horrible it was being in this room and everything. And now she finds herself, after being knocked unconscious by Luther, back in this room. And she just feels betrayed because, even though on the other side of the vault, basically everybody's arguing against Luther, saying she's our sister, Klaus is she just came into these powers. She doesn't know how to control them. She'd be freaked out because he had a similar experience with with his own abilities and how much they freaked out and screwed him up, you know? And then you have even Diego's like, she's our sister, we need to, you know, help her. And so everyone's kind of like on that side, but Luther is just not letting any of them through. And they all he ends up making the point of how dangerous she is, and they all just kind of accept that. And that moment of acceptance of everybody else that to just let her rot in there, like, breaks her.
Yeah, that's what does it. The whole thing, like, she was granted, she was dangerous before. Mm-hmm. Everybody, like, abandoning her, letting her rot was like, that's when she transforms fully into the white violin. And the thing is, that unleashes her full power. It's like, it's that point where she embraces fully what she is, so she's able to tap into her full power, and under her full power, they can't contain her. She blows the door open on her, on her prison, and she just walks right out of there. And at that point, she is the instrument that ends the world. And I think that's when number 5 realizes, this is what causes the apocalypse.
Yeah, he realizes that he thought everything was destroyed at the same time, but that the Umbrella Academy itself was destroyed before the end of the world.
Yes.
And this happens as he discovers this, because Vanya, tears open the vault that's keeping her in and is just shaking the place to its foundations. He's going through past all of the rooms of her siblings and having memories of when they were children, of basically them all neglecting her. And as she's walking by, you just see the rooms collapsing and falling apart. Pogo tries to stop her. He tries to talk reason into her, but he ends up admitting that he knew that she had powers and was involved in the lie that was manipulating her. And upon that reveal, she can't accept it, and she throws him into a set of antlers on a wall and kills him.
Yeah. And
then she continues walking out of the house and brings down the entire house right on top of Grace, who's inside it, who dies for the second time because Diego had taken her out before when he thought she was malfunctioning.
Right.
He had an emotional moment where he did some euthanasia on her, basically thinking, that she was gone and wanted her to go out in a peaceful way. She was brought back by Pogo. There were revelations about what really ended up happening because they thought at that point that, Grace had malfunctioned and killed their father, and they find out eventually that no, their father killed himself as a way of getting his family back together to get them on the same page in order to stop the end of the world. So that's Grace had died before. Here she dies again in the collapse of this building. And so now they're all out to get Vanya, basically, to stop the end of the world.
Yes. And that doesn't go so well.
Vanya's way more powerful than all of them.
Yes.
She's in a music hall with music playing, so her power is based on sound. So she's just accumulated a massive amount of power. It's so much that she's just playing away at her violin. Energy's just circulating her. She's wearing all black and playing this black violin. It all turns white just because the power just overloads and just turns everything around her white, basically. Including her clothes and her violin, just become bleached in power. They're trying to stop her. They can't really stop her. She's basically got all of them off the ground, holding them in place, sapping energy from them, it looks like, visually. What she doesn't know is that Allison is right behind her with a gun, and it looks like she's going to kill Vanya to take out this threat to the world. But instead what she does is she puts the gun right next to Vanya's ear and fires off a shell.
Yeah. And this
basically knocking her out.
This knocks her out. This completely depowers Vanya, but
that power has to go somewhere.
Yes.
So it goes flinging out into the sky as she's falling over. And we know as the audience, because we see it right away, but her siblings don't realize right away that she just basically destroyed the moon.
Yeah, she destroys the moon.
And the moon is just falling as giant asteroids falling to Earth now.
So they managed to stop Vanya, but they didn't manage to prevent the end of the world, which was the entire goal, or at least for number 5 was the entire goal from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So they kind of failed.
Yeah. Number 5 ends up saying, hey, I'm going to try to do a time travel and bring all of you with me. And we need to fix Vanya and figure out how to stop this all together. One more shot,
Yes.
basically. And that's how the season season ends, as they teleport out of there.
Yes, and apparently, like, from the previews of season 2, it looks like the time travel was successful, although they're not into present day.
No, they're like in the 60s. I think they're around the time of the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah, which was actually, like, the second storyline in the comic books, too, was about, like, the 60s and the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah, which was also interesting because that is when number 5 went back to his family in the first episode. He was at the Kennedy assassination.
Yes.
He was one of the people involved. He was like, you know, the conspiracy theory about the person on the grassy knoll, you know, firing from behind the fence. That was apparently him. And he teleported from that period back in the first episode. That's when he went into his youthful body in the present day. So he's going back to like around that same time period. And the trailer seems to be hinting that the apocalypse is following him. Like now it's going to happen much earlier than it did before. Instead of 2019, the apocalypse happens in 1963, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's kind of looks like the direction it's going in. That's coming out next Friday. I can't wait. I'm really excited. Looking forward to it.
Probably start watching that.
But yeah, that's it. Is there anything else you want to say about the Umbrella Academy?
Not really. It's a cool show. Like, I really enjoyed season 1. I'm looking forward to season 2. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's great production values, great music throughout it. There's lots of, like, great licensed music in it. The art direction's great. The special effects are great. The family dynamic is awesome. A lot of good actors, great cast, as we've mentioned, some of them already. I'm really excited on what they're going to do with the season 2.
Yeah, definitely.
So, that's it. All we have left to do is talk about what's coming up in the next couple of weeks. So we're recording this on Monday, July 27th, 2020. Today, Don't Look Deeper came out on Quibi. Tuesday, July 28th, tomorrow, Max with 3 X's comes to Hulu. Again, like we said last week, this isn't the Max. This is just some other show. On Thursday, July 30th, 2020, Frayed comes to HBO Max, Idiomatic to Sundance Now, and In My Skin to Hulu. On Friday, July 31st, Muppets Now to Disney+, Locked Up El Oasis to Netflix, Get Even to Netflix, and as we've mentioned, of course, The Umbrella Academy Season 2 on Netflix. On Wednesday, August 5th, Coroner comes to the CW. On Thursday, August 6th, Hitmen to Peacock, Upright to Sundance Now, and Star Trek Lower Decks to CBS All Access. This is the animated comedy Star Trek series. Have you heard about this at all?
Yeah, I saw the trailer. It's dumb. Okay.
But that's coming to CBS All Access, so if you have that, which is, I guess, now like just the Star Trek streaming service.
Yeah, it's the Star Trek service.
Also, The Rain comes to Netflix on that day. On Friday, August 7th, High Seas to Netflix, and Tales of Arcadia Wizards to Netflix. This is do you remember Troll Hunters, the CG animated Netflix show?
Yeah, I remember that.
There's like a whole extended universe, and this is one of the shows in that universe.
Oh, okay.
So this is Tales of Arcadia Wizards to Netflix. And then lastly, on Sunday, August 9th, Endeavor returns to PBS. We Hunt Together comes to Showtime. And YOLO Crystal Fantasy comes to Adult Swim / Cartoon Network. So that's it. That's the next couple of weeks. As I mentioned, next week we are going to be doing a kind of thought experiment. What we're going to do is we're going to pick 10 showrunners each, and we're going to say what we'd like to see them adapt. It could be a video game, a movie, a TV series that already exists. Basically, you could say like, I want Breaking Bad's Vince Gilligan to do an adaptation of MASH, to make a new version of MASH. It could be something like that. Basically, we're going to go through and we're just going to kind of do a little thought experiment. We're going to go through and discuss what we'd like to see these showrunners do and what we think would be a good fit for them, and kind of talk it out and see where that goes. But if you want to contribute anything, not 10 obviously, but if you want to contribute one of your ideas in the same vein, you can hit us on Twitter, the same way you would be able to contact us for anything. I'm on Twitter at Tyson Gifford. Will is at Voxel Hero. You can also check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetittlescreen.com. And you can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So check that out. And like, as I said, if you have anything to contribute for next week's topic, go ahead and join in on that. Give us a pick of your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment,
send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best in